Hello, listeners. I'm your host, Jeff Hatter. Thank you for tuning in to Yoruba Travels Podcast, the place that delivers all the marvelous wonders of our beautiful world from first-hand accounts of people who live in these exotic places. After listening, head over to yorubatravels.com to find out more cool information. That's yorubatravels.com. And don't forget to subscribe and join the Yoruba Travels community. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation. All right, my guest today is joining us from the city known as the Green City in the Sun, better known as Nairobi, Kenya, and her name is Christine. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. I can't wait to get into our conversation. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell our listeners, what you do and a little bit about where you're from?
Sure, Jeff. So I'm Christine, as Jeff mentioned, Christine Kathurima, hyphenatedly, and I live in Nairobi, Kenya now. And I'm a school principal here at one of our private schools. And I love to travel. So I found my way home after 21 years of traipsing around a few places. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, that's fantastic. What are some of the places that you've been and traveled to?
Sure. So when I was really little, I grew up in a family where my parents loved to travel. My mom was consulting in different countries. So we had an opportunity to visit Malawi, Zambia when I was very, very young. And then when I finished high school, I moved to the US for my undergrad. Spent a good bit of time there before moving with my Korean husband to South Korea, where you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really nice before finally moving back home this is my third year home now. Yeah, it's just around 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. So Kenya really feels like your home. I know you've lived in the US, you've been in Korea, and does Kenya really feel like home?
It's funny. I heard a term third culture kid. So when I meet friends of mine who are like me, so it's kind of like you're a third culture kid who has a dislocated heart. So I love Kenya so much. And because most of my adult years was spent in Georgia and I have most of my best friends still there, I
Mm-hmm.
feel a very strong attachment to Atlanta. And then because I have my in-laws, my mom-in-law in Korea, I just feel like I have an equal love for the three. But as a patriot, I gotta say, Kenyan for life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of expats feel that way. I know I do. I was actually just talking with who was I talking with? My cousin, I think I was talking to. And I
Yeah.
moved to Kentucky when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I lived in that Kentucky house for about 10 years. And this year marks my 10th year, starting my 11th year in Korea. So it's like, wow, like equal time, which one feels like home. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying. Like your heart is in kind of both and you have this love for each
Yeah.
place, right?
That it is. It is. It's kind of like that's what a true global citizen is, right? You can't really
Mm.
pick one. It's just a true passion for both or
Yeah,
all, depending on where you are.
exactly. Exactly. And yeah, it's this connection to the culture, this connection to the people, we join communities as expats. We
Yeah.
join communities and we make friends and relationships through those. And I'm
Mhm.
sure travelers do the same. You meet new people, you might jump onto a sports team one day or something like that. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is fascinating.
It
So,
is.
so one thing I want to ask about is food. I absolutely love food when I travel. That's one of the main reasons I travel. I love the
Mhm.
local dishes, and I love the spices that are used. So if I come to Kenya, what's a must eat?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. You know how in Korea it's a very homogenous society, but every city has its own special food. I
Hmm.
think in Kenya it's very similar because
Okay.
we have multiple tribes. So some books say we have 45 tribes, some books say we have 63 tribes. So we have above 40 different tribal communities in Kenya with their own type of food. So if you say must haves in Kenya, you have to have chapati. So
Chapati.
chapati, you if you've had naan or Indian bread, it's very similar, or parotas. So it's something that we inherited from Indian culture many years ago. So
Hmm.
you gotta have some chapatis, and then something that is really local to us is nyamachoma, which is grilled meat. You gotta have some barbecued meat. It's like yeah, it's something you can't miss.
Hmm.
um I think when you're a visitor, the first place we'll take you is to have some nyama choma. And nyama is meat and choma is grill. So it's just like the best thing ever.
Ah, okay. So yeah, and
Mhm.
what language is that? Yama Choma.
Kiswahili.
Swahili.
So, because there's so many tribes, everybody speaks Kiswahili, which is our national language,
Hmm.
and then we all speak English, which is our official language. So every child learns English and Kiswahili in school. Our newspapers, our TV are in those two languages, and then you have your own mother tongue. So when we speak Kiswahili, it kind of brings everybody together, and nobody worries or wonders about tribe.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, so this yamachoma and chapatis, are these, like you were saying that there were in certain tribes, but are these foods that we can get all across Kenya, or are they in certain locations?
Okay, so these are, you can find this anywhere. You land in Nairobi at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and you say, Christine, I'm in Kenya. What do we do? And we say, Jeff, we're going to feed that body. So the first thing we
Yes.
would do, yes, is find a nyamachoma place, a restaurant, and any of we have certain good nyamachoma places. We would take you there. You have a side of what is our salsa. We call it kachumbari. It's delicious. Some tomatoes with onions, with cilantro, very delicious. And then the side item would be either the chapati or our local ugali, which is corn, pounded corn.
Mm.
That's very, very, very delicious.
I think you muted your microphone for a second. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I have kids and I hear them yeah, at the door. But this is the life of a mom. Yeah,
That's hey, that's part of life. That's part of what happens. Luckily, mine are
right.
sleeping right now, so
Smart man. Smart. Yeah.
yeah. Ah, well, that all right. So you can get off the airplane.
Yep.
We know exactly where we want to go and try these foods out. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good just to add. So that's food that everybody likes, but the tribal ones you'll find, spicy rice made by the people of the coast. You'll find people like me. I'm from the mountain area. We eat more potatoes.
Hmm.
Um, then, if you're on the west side of our country, they love chicken and fish, really good seafood. So, those ones now depend on the regional area you go to. But for
Hmm.
any Kenyan family, we have nyama choma, beef stew, with those side items I mentioned, such as the chapati, which is very, very, very popular, and kids love it, adults love it alike. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I assume that most of the restaurants in the cities have these types of foods. If people want to get out of the city a little bit and explore, are the restaurants kind of tourist friendly? Do they have foods like the yamachoma and so forth? Is it pretty easy to find quality,
Yeah.
not just quality food, but
Yeah.
kind of food that most people would eat?
Yeah, actually, you might be surprised. So, because Kenya has been a tourist location for years and years, we
Mm-hmm.
have people who plan weddings, elaborate weddings. It's their dream to get married in Mombasa, which is our beach, or get married in Africa at the Mara, which is the national park. So, because we've been a tourist location and we've been the headquarters for the United Nations and 400 different NGOs for years, we have every type of food. We have Thai food, we have Chinese, Japanese restaurant, Korean, American food. So, fortunately, Kenya is a place that most people who, when they travel here, find it very, very easy to find the cuisine they enjoy. Um, so most of my friends actually who come here and go, what do I eat? We say, what would you like? You know? So name your menu and then we'll guide.
Hmm.
Because of that exposure and then openness to tourism, and then ultimately resettling of a lot of nationalities in Kenya. We're a very diverse country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic, especially for people that are not just traveling there, but for expats coming to
Yeah.
live. And
Yeah.
we were talking about our hearts are in one place. Well, so are our stomachs sometimes, right?
Very true. Food
And
is important. Food is really
absolutely.
important. You know, Jeff, I remember when I moved to Korea the first time and I lived there 7 years. And my husband and I, he was in college. We lived at a place, Sukte Ipku. Sukmyong University was our exit.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And it was downtown, and there were many little restaurants there. I remember we used to try restaurants all the time, and I'd go like, but is there a burger place? Can I just get a burger? After all this delicious Korean food, you'd be like, what? I'm like, I just miss a burger. So like
Hmm.
once every few months, we would have to go to
Right.
Itaewon or Hongdae to find a burger. Food
Right.
matters. It really matters.
Yeah, we need those comforts sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people when people come and they become expats, if they're living and working there, um, surely they don't want to eat out all the time. I assume that there's big markets. I know that Kenya's definitely a developed country. As you said, it's very diverse now. Um, but are there still kind of local markets like here in Korea? You remember the outdoor shijangs, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I assume Kenya still has those, and are they still popular? Is that the place to go to get fresh fruit and so forth?
Yeah. Yeah. So yes. So being that um yeah, it's the best way to describe it would be that there's a mix of modern and still developing. So we're a developing nation. We haven't completely gotten out of poverty. We have areas of very high poverty, then we have some middle income areas, and then extremely posh neighborhoods. So you can get anything, but most people shop in markets. I mean, I buy my fruits in the market. There's supermarkets as well. But if you want the best fruit, the best vegetables from the farm, is you would shop locally from, we call them mama mboga. So mama is mother,
Mm-hmm.
and mboga means vegetable. So the best thing to do is to find a good mama mboga, because she will hook you up and you'll be able to say, once every week, I need my cabbage, my spinach, my potatoes, and you pay her and she supplies you from her source. It might be a farm somewhere in Nairobi. So that's one way that we get around it for very busy times.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have time, you can actually go to a big market. There are very many, many big markets here. Yeah.
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 That's fascinating to know that the what is it, Mama Boga? Is that right? Mama Boga? I love that
Yeah, that's
term.
good. Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's nice that you have somebody that's, one, you're supporting local
Hmm.
farms and local
Hmm.
markets and so forth, but that they'll
Hmm.
actually kind of set you up to come and, pick up your produce once a week or something.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
really helpful too, especially when you
It
don't have
is.
time to get to the grocery store and, a
Yeah.
set schedule.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of survival. So we're still a very agricultural nation. And
Okay.
so we depend on subsistence farming where, people are growing their own crops. But if you're not in the countryside, how are you going to get your food every day? You can go and spend a high ticket price item in the supermarket, which
Mhm.
you can do sometimes if you're running late from work, or you can go and buy locally your mangoes and your fruits. As you're driving home from work, you'll see them along the roadside, and it's really awesome. For me, I love it. I get the sweetest fruits that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that just reminds me of the way it is here in Korea. We have trucks. They're kind of like
Yeah,
half semi trucks set up where they sell fruit out of them. You remember that, right?
I do on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. And we also
Mhm.
have some of the houses that aren't in the apartment complex areas. They have their own little gardens where they grow
Mhm.
peppers and cabbage and so forth. So is it kind of the same? Like in a house, they have a small garden next to it where they grow.
Yeah, it depends. So, for the ladies I mentioned in particular, they actually have farms. So,
Okay,
within Nairobi, on the outskirts, there are still farms. So, they grow in the farm and they drive every day
drive
into
it in.
Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
So when we had some COVID lockdowns, the president had actually shut down cities. People suffered a lot because they couldn't bring their produce in and we couldn't buy
Yeah.
it. But now that we've opened up the cities, they drive early in the morning, 4 and 5 a.m., and go to the market where we drive and go buy from the market.
Okay.
So people who have home gardens, I mean, that's if you have your home with your garden.
Right.
Many of us live in apartments, but some do have the home gardens in the backyard, which is the ultimate dream for some of us after maybe retirement when we stop being scared of bugs. Yeah, there's that too. Oh, yeah,
Plenty of bugs,
yeah.
especially if you have a garden.
Especially if you like stone and apartment buildings, some of us have been living in concrete jungles for so long. When you
Yes.
see a garden, you go, I love that, but I don't know if I want to dig through. Yeah, yeah, at this
That's
age. Give me 10 years, then we'll talk about
things
it.
will change. Oh yeah, things will change.
Yeah,
Oh, that's really good to know that you can drive and you can support local economies and farms and driving
yeah.
around. If people come to visit, is that something that you recommend? Do you recommend renting a car, or is it just easy enough to get around with Uber? Or I'm sure Kenya has their own car for
Hmm.
hire service, right? So would you
Hmm.
recommend renting a car to most people?
Yeah, so we have Uber, we have Bolt, we have Little Cab. So there are a lot of private companies here.
Okay.
Um, it depends on how long you're staying, but it's a good thing to rent a car if you're staying for say a month,
Mm-hmm.
because then you have flexibility. There's also people who own cars and they will rent you a car and a driver, which is very cool.
Wow.
So, being that we're a country that is very service oriented, drivers are a thing. I mean, most of us, some people have drivers um, to go to work every day, to drop off their kids at school, to go on safari. If you want to go around the company, you can hire a car and a driver. There are a couple of conveniences that, for me, I think are wonderful, really, really wonderful.
Wow. And that renting a car and driver, is that from like, an individual, or are those companies set up for that?
There are some companies, and then there's also word of mouth. Word of mouth is very, very strong in my country.
Okay.
So if knowing a person and building relationships is everything. And it just reminds me, that's my favorite saying in life. Relationships are the key to life. Dr. John Maxwell said that many years ago. And I find that wherever you are, even in Korea, in the States, any country, when you have good relationships, then your network becomes so strong and people
Mm-hmm.
refer. So you can either get a referral from a friend, to a company who's doing very well, or to a person who hires out cars, but they're usually formal businesses.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
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 I love renting cars when I go. I know, like you said, for a month or so, it's probably necessary to get,
yeah.
explore a little bit more. But I like it just for the simple fact that you can get out of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so many beautiful things outside of cities. Cities offer so much in forms of entertainment, museums,
Yeah,
the arts.
yeah,
But once you
yeah,
get outside, see how the
yeah.
locals live, you really get culture and so forth. So I really like renting a car. How does the car and driver thing work? Like, I'm picturing like a chauffeur in my head, and you just say, "Take me here."
That's how it is. Okay, there's no suit. Yeah, there's no suit as such. So the
Oh, okay.
outfit is a little more casual. The
Street
outfit
clothes.
itself,
Okay.
yeah, the outfit is more casual, but they know everything. You know, the shortcuts. They know where like the rest stop may be, because there are not too many. But it's just good to have a guide because they'll let you
Yeah.
know the best time to leave. It's very, very helpful. Um, if you have a friend, though, they kind of say serve in the same way. So a friend, or you can hire a driver in that way. But
Mhm.
they're not that costly when you convert either from Korean won or US dollars. It's not that costly. It's a nice convenient service.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, is it like a flat rate, or is this like a taxi thing where you pay them based on where you go? And also, is there tipping? Do you have to tip them?
Yeah, so you negotiate everything in advance.
Oh,
The best thing
negotiations. I
is to
love that.
yeah, you bargain. So you negotiate everything in advance, you agree on it, and that's what you pay. So it's best, like I said, if you have a friend to do it for you. It's
Yeah.
really wiser because then you can have, an approximation of whether you're paying the right thing or not.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then you can pay a deposit at the beginning, and then when the whole journey is done, you pay the whole thing, which is really good. It's kind of like security. Yeah, it's your security deposit.
Yeah.
And when the journey is done, you can choose to tip. I mean, tipping is very nice. We tip everywhere.
Is
Yeah,
that part of
very
the
similar
culture?
to the,
Tipping is part of the
yeah.
culture? Mm-hmm.
We tip everywhere at the barber shop. Yeah, after meals, just leave a tip. Just good practice. Yeah.
Is there a standard percentage that people should leave?
No, which
Okay.
there
Okay.
isn't really a standard percentage, but it depends on where you go. So, yeah, I've heard so much debate about tips here.
Mm-hmm.
We use shillings. I always think 10% is great. Yeah, I always think 10% is a good minimum for anybody
I agree.
because
Yeah.
people in the service industry work so hard. So I just go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that's good. Well, and that's something good to know when people travel, because places, like Korea, I keep referring back to Korea, but Korea, Thailand, they don't have a tipping culture. So
Yeah.
they're not used to it. So if somebody
Yeah.
from Korea was to come to Kenya,
Yeah.
it's nice for them to know. I've spoken to so many people that go to America and go, it's so expensive because I have to pay an extra $20 on my bill. Like,
I know. I
yeah.
know. It's shocking. It's shocking when you go, I think, from another country to a non-tipping country to a tipping country. Very shocking. For
Big
me, it was
shock.
the opposite in Korea, where I was like, can I tip? No, we paid already. I'm like, okay. So it's kind of reverse.
Exactly.
But yeah, being home, if you spend some time in a hotel room, you leave some shillings for the
Hmm.
person who's going to clean your room. Just everywhere you go, you remember to tip. Yeah, it's
Yes.
really important. Yeah.
Excellent piece of advice for people going to Kenya. Good piece.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we're talking about transportation and renting cars or hiring cars for rent. What are some beautiful places just outside Nairobi, or, not too far away, maybe an hour, 2 hours away, that people should really go and see?
Yeah. So, as I said, it's very popular for people to come and visit. I know that most people are very interested in the national parks.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have a national park within Nairobi. So in 30 minutes, you could be at the Nairobi National Park itself.
Okay.
We also have the Masai Mara National Park, also within the city. But if you want to drive out and do different things, we have a place called Naivasha. And Naivasha is really popular because you can do so many things. One is you could choose to go to the lake area. So you can visit Lake Elementaita, you can visit Lake Naivasha, you could see flamingo. So
Hmm.
very nice nature. And that's only around 2 hours away.
Not far.
So
Good.
a lot of people love Naivasha and they go overnight. It's good to have an overnight trip so you get the sunrise and the sunset, and really fresh, delicious food as well.
And what kind of area is that? Is that a mountain area, kind of a safari area? What's the area like?
Yeah, so we call it savanna. Most of our
Savannah. Hmm.
vegetation is savanna, so it's flat. Kenya is really, really flat in some areas. We have, 7 different geographical systems, but that's the lake area. So Lake Naivasha is very flat. You can see flamingos a mile off with all the pink. You can go boating. It's very, very beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, camping. That's one of my favorite things to do when I go somewhere is camping.
Yeah.
The
Camping
sunrise,
is
sunset
wonderful.
that you
Yep.
mentioned. Mm.
Yep. Yep. There's a lot of camping in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, typically around lakes or boats, places where you can boat,
Mhm.
near the mountains and stuff.
Yeah.
Camping's a
Yeah.
great option for people to get out, and you can meet so many people. If there are other people
True.
camping, they're some of
Yeah.
the nicest people you'll meet.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. When you talk of camping, so the lake area is very nice. However, if you drive maybe 4 to 5 hours inward, you can actually go to Mount Kenya and climb the mountain, and
Mm.
there's snow at the peaks. Yeah, you
Wow.
need to at least first spend some time in the city because I notice sometimes you have to adjust your breathing because it's like Colorado. We are a mile high. So some people when they come to Kenya they can't breathe well the first few days. So
They have to
once you
acclimate.
adjust, acclimate, right?
Hmm.
Then you can climb Mount Kenya and it's beautiful. There's the Nyeri side, the Meru side, and yeah, in your hiking boots, you'll find lots and lots of friends to hike that mountain with. Yeah.
There's always somebody ready to go up the mountains.
Hmm. True.
Yeah, a friend of mine who I had on the show previously lives in Colorado, and he
Hmm.
told everybody you need to layer up. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's the same out there. If you guys are, if you're still a mile high, the
Yeah.
weather can change quickly. You get to the
Yeah.
top of the mountain and there's snow.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and another piece of advice that a lot of people don't think about, when you're in the snow, you can still get sunburned.
Hmm.
I want
That's
people
very
to
true.
remember that. Yeah. Always have your
Hmm.
sunscreen. Just because it's
Hmm.
colder doesn't mean you can't get sunburned.
Very, very true. Sunscreen is important. They're layering up, and for us, it's we get rain on the mountain, so it's icy rain and it's slippery. So
Mm-hmm.
bringing the right gear is also important,
Mm-hmm.
and not climbing on your own. So there are also guides. You can go with a guide, and then you need to start very, very early in the morning if you want to, get down before dark. Yeah.
Okay. Mm. So that's what's like an average hike time? Do you know?
That's a terrible question for me.
Okay.
I'm acting like I've climbed the mountain in the last year. But there are different peaks. So this I know because I have friends who love hiking, and they've been trying to convince me to go. I go to the beach, which is going to be my third recommendation. I'm a beach bunny. I like the water. Um, but I know that there's Batian. There are different areas you can stop along before you get to the very top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend of mine I was talking to last week, they took Oh my. They started at 5 a.m. and they were back down around 4 p.m., but they just went to the second peak. So it's, I mean, it's all day.
It's
It's
a
an all day
yeah,
affair.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely have to plan accordingly, especially if you're leaving it early in the morning. It's probably a bit chilly
Mhm.
when you go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, tell me about your third recommendation. Tell me about the beautiful beaches. Now I'm ready to get warm.
Beach. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, the beach, famous beaches. So if you look at the map of we have the Indian Ocean along the border, and it's a long, 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 beautiful border. So you can go to Mombasa, Malindi, or Lamu, or even Zanzibar, which is very near Tanzania.
Hmm.
But Mombasa is our Busan. So in Korea, we have Busan, the beach. In Kenya, we have Mombasa, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous place to hang out. And many people go there on holiday. Yeah.
Hmm. Is that a
Yeah.
crowd? Is Mombasa a crowded place year round, or are there like hot times? The
Yep.
peak seasons. What are the peak seasons?
Yeah, we have peak seasons, July and December, especially July, August, and then December, because most schools are on holiday. So that
Hmm.
is a vacation period, and parents and kids, similarly, yeah, to very many countries, summer and winter. So July, August, and December, it's super crowded. So my family and I usually go in March, kind of like what would be spring break. March or January, when people are going back to work and school, that's when I usually take a short break for a week. And there's nobody, it's empty, and it's awesome.
Some
Yeah.
quiet, some real R&R, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And right now, because during COVID times we've been very strict in Kenya about the coronavirus. So the travel industry has been really affected. We couldn't travel for a long time, and now people are starting to fly a lot. So there are great deals right now. Welcome to Kenya. Please come. There are great deals right now. Yeah.
So it's finally open up to travelers. You guys can leave and travelers can come in. Are there any restrictions
Yes.
when people come in? Are there quarantine or is there anything like
Yep.
that?
Yeah, so definitely when anyone flies into the country, first of all, it depends on the airline. Most airlines require a COVID negative certificate. That's
Okay.
one. So you have to check with the airline. When you land in Kenya, you have to self quarantine for 14 days. So they take your information, you need to self quarantine. And then, yes, you have to be masked at all time and proper masking, no mask on your eyes, proper masking. Um,
Can
and
it be
then
a
the social
Halloween mask?
distancing.
No Halloween masks,
None of that.
right? No.
None of that. None of that. Surgical mask or at least a two-ply fabric mask. Two-ply.
Two ply.
Very
Hmm.
important. So it's pretty strict. And then whenever you go to supermarkets, you go anywhere, we have hand washing stations. You have to sanitize, and they use thermal guns everywhere at the malls, in schools, to take your temperature. So we're trying to do our part to ensure that this droplet infecting virus doesn't spread.
That's great. That's fantastic. And I know other places are too. Korea, what you just named, is the same. I don't know about traveling in with the negative test, but the masks, the guns to check temperature and so forth.
Yeah.
It's all the same here. And
Yeah.
I've talked to people in France and China, same over there too. So yeah, it sounds like people are trying to just
Mhm.
nip this thing in the bud, get rid of it. We
Trying
all
to.
want to travel.
We all want to travel and get back to what life should be, which we don't know what that looks like now. And I feel like people are a little bit exhausted these days because I've seen we were out of town for the first time First time in 6 months last weekend. So I didn't go out of town for 6 months with my family, which you know how much, you and I have this love for travel,
Mm-hmm.
So we went out last weekend, yeah, to Naivasha. And yeah, as we got out of the city, I saw everybody in masks. Less people, less people, no masks. And I went, so yeah. And when we got to our destination, I was going, do you guys have masks? We're like, and they had sanitizer, hand washing stations. But what they did was social distance very well. But they were kind of like, no, 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 no. Here we just social distance. So I feel like slowly people are getting a bit exhausted with the guidelines, but still, I would encourage us to just play it safe as much as we can. Let's just play it safe as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Just play it safe. Get through this. It'll go away eventually, or at least cease. And then, as you said, move into social distancing, like some of those outer cities are doing, and so forth. So good.
Yeah, we need to get to a place where we're not so fearful and we have some coping mechanisms here. Mm.
Yeah. Well, this the whole COVID thing has changed. You know, changed the way we go about our daily lives. It's even changed part of cultures in some sense, and the way we do things. It's hard to go to a music concert anymore, a
Yeah.
play, especially the movie theaters. So it's really changed not just daily life, but it's starting to impact cultures around the world. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm really curious about. I know Kenya's got a beautiful, rich culture to it. Um, can you tell us a little bit about the culture?
Yeah. Yeah, sure, sure. Um I think something that's unique about Kenya, if I were to compare, being in Asia and then North America and now back in East Africa, is I mean, we love to gather. We love to gather, and we gather for any any occasion. When I say any, I'll give you a simple example.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came 3 years ago, unfortunately, I lost my mom's uncle, who I was very close to. I was so surprised that the funeral I had forgotten was a celebration. A few weeks after, a teacher at our school also had someone pass away. We did a fundraiser. Another friend had a similar situation. So I remembered we always come together to support each other. I had
Beautiful.
forgotten about that because I think in many cultures, you work hard, you take care of your family, and it's a little more, I think, individualistic, or
Mm-hmm.
can I put it like in a small cocoon? But here you're like you're your society's keeper. So your nanny goes through something, you support your nanny's family, your nanny's child. So there's a lot of communal support that built from years and years of our kind of like our village system. Because we'd always have a village system, a chief takes care of their people, the affluent people in the community help others.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it was different from Korea, but it reminds me of Semaul Undong a little bit, where
Mm-hmm.
if you have more, you give to the society. So I still see parts of that in my culture here, which it kind of warms my heart because I almost forgot about that in the busyness of life. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's touching. It's very
Yeah,
touching.
it's a beautiful thing, and I wish more people were like that, because there is no greater joy than giving back.
Mm,
You can be happy. Happiness is temporary, but there's some sort of joy you get from giving back. And
yeah.
you mentioned that it's a celebration at a funeral. This might sound a bit weird. That's what I
Mm,
hope people do when I pass.
mm,
Whenever that may
mm,
be. Hopefully not soon, but I want it to be a celebration.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
want people to see
Yeah.
that I'm talking to people around the world doing this podcast, that I lived
Yeah.
life to the fullest and celebrate it. Don't, enjoy it, what I gave you. That's beautiful.
I I do agree with that, and it's also a good way of coping. with death,
Mm-hmm.
because, we know the cycles of grief and how it goes. But I feel like a lot of my time in, the Western countries, I suppressed my grief because, society expected you to go through those cycles,
Mm-hmm.
which you go through. But when you actually let out the pain by celebrating and being very honest that we really hate that you passed away, but look what you did. Look what you did for us, with us. Um, it makes a huge difference. And it's really helped for me because I lost so many people while I was away. People got married while I was away. My cousins are now taller than me. And so when I come back and we celebrate it, I'm going, oh my gosh, baby cousin, let's do something to celebrate this growth. And it's surreal, but
Mm-hmm.
it's helped me when I connect, and it's all about, okay, let's dance because of whatever occasion we have. We just dance and we sing and we just celebrate life, and I'm grateful for that. It's awakening parts of me that we're just I think we're just in autumn. I was just moving like a robot, just robotic. This is what we do, this is how we do things. And now it's kind of like, no, we pause, we recognize, we celebrate, and then we move on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a beautiful part of the culture, that the celebration part. I really like that. What
Yeah.
about some misconceptions? People from the outside might have looking in, and what are some of the misconceptions about Kenya or the culture?
Oh wow, misconceptions. I think before I'm 70, I should write a book about that.
You should.
Um,
You should. I'll
we'll
buy
see.
it.
We'll see. First customer. Well, I think that one is really easy because I remember when I was in Korea and we would watch TV. It's a regular TV show. It could be anything. So in Korea, we would watch a lot of baseball. My husband loves sports so much. So
Mm-hmm.
we'd watch a baseball game. In between the baseball game, you would see an advert, let's help some needy people in Africa. Then we watch maybe a show on TV, and it's Christmas. And Christmas, they always show Home Alone or Die Hard, and we're
Yeah.
enjoying it. And halfway through the advertisements, help an African child.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest ones worldwide, I think in every nation, is that because there's so much televised ads on UNICEF and Save the Children, it's that we're waiting on saviors to help the poor. That's one thing that comes out very strongly. So
Mm-hmm.
what that does, it casts a shadow on everything else. So people don't even know that we actually have schools here that are running very well. Actually, Kenyans love education above anything else. They will sell their land to take their kids to good school. Other African nations bring their kids to school in Kenya because our education system is very, very strong. When you finish high school in Kenya and you relocate abroad, most Kenyans in their first 2 years, in their freshman and sophomore year, score all A's because our system is so competitive.
Wow.
So I think one of the things that I don't think is highlighted is we love education, love education. And you'll see anybody, even the mama mboga, doing all she can to get her child in a good school.
Yeah, that's really overlooked in a lot of places, is
Yeah,
the lengths that people will go to for education.
yeah,
The I
yeah.
mean, and that happens a lot. Like you said, you lived in America, and Georgia's, part of the Appalachian, community is in Georgia, and some families there would do the same thing. But as you said, it's often overshadowed by this perception of, as you said, a savior. We need a savior.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the
Mm-hmm.
case. So that's a
Yeah,
really
it's
great misconception to point out. And I thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
sure. And I think just to be very fair, um, it doesn't mean that we are rich in Kenya. right? It just means like every country has different segments of population. Let's
Mhm.
recognize that. So when we're highlighting things, I've been to Oklahoma, I've been to Kansas City, I've seen rough parts of ATL. I've been chased by a drunk guy with a bottle on Marta in Atlanta. But that could be anywhere. It could be Thailand,
Right.
it could be Vietnam, it could be Nairobi. So I would love, love, love to share that people are just people, you know, and countries have all segments of the community, and it's just the beauty of how life is. That's how life is.
Mhm.
We then need to work on, yeah, helping the poor in different countries, and being kind human beings. I think if we look at ourselves as kind human beings and exposing ourselves by travel, then we'll see that we're not that different. We're just not that different. Yeah.
Bingo. Bingo. We're not that different. And all societies have, have their crime problems.
Yeah.
All societies also have, their rich communities. Wherever you are in the world, you're going to get that. And I think you're right. We're just humans. Like, we just need to be kind to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Bottom line.
Yeah. So I want to kind of bring it back. We were just talking about the education and the lengths that families will go to for their children in some cases. And you're the expert of education. So I'd like to ask you, what's happening right now with Kenya's education?
Mhm. Yes. So education in Kenya. So in Kenya, we have a lot of public schools, and most students go to public school. That is a government-funded school where school is free, other than certain fees that parents pay. Say if their child is in a boarding school, they might have minimal fees.
Hmm.
Of course, they would have to pay for their, their suitcase and stuff like that. But there's public schools. Majority of kids go there. Then we have private schools, and I work for a private school system. At my school, we have six schools, four are boarding school, high schools, and then two are primary schools, day school. And I work at one of those day schools. I lead one of them. Then we have international schools as well. So we have British system schools, American system schools, we have mission schools, the French School of Kenya, German School of Kenya. So we have diversity within the market, educational market.
Is the education here in Korea, it's teacher and information centered, where the students, they gather the information and then you know they take their test. In the US, it's a little bit different. It's more student centered, project based. What are the schools like in Kenya?
Yeah. So I would say growing up, most countries have evolved from the teacher-centered model. Most countries began there,
Hmm.
right? So historically, and so that's where we began as well. But now we have something called the competency-based curriculum. It's called CBC for short.
Hmm.
Um, and the CBC system was rolled out just, a few years ago, actually when I got here. So my school is a CBC school, and it's student centered and it's wonderful. The system is controversial in many ways, but one way that it's great is that it puts the student voice at the center. For schools, when it was being rolled out, there was some gaps in training teachers in schools and how to roll it out. But schools are catching up to how to do it, where the student has voice, and then we have less of the summative assessments,
Hmm.
because we would have a lot of high stakes exams. When I was in school, there was an exam that determined my high school. And when I was in
Hmm.
school, there was an exam that determined my university. And that was
Hmm.
it, you know?
Yep.
But we're slowly moving away from that system, which I think is going to be positive as it gives students with all abilities opportunities. So
Hmm.
that's where we are right now. We're now in around the third year of this CBC competency based curriculum,
Okay.
and yeah, learning how to do it well. At our school, the good thing is that we benchmark schools in different countries, and I think because we invest a lot in our teacher PDs, professional development. It's been a very smooth rollout, and parents are generally pleased. And the thing that tells me that it's going well is kids love to come back to school the next day. They just want to be in school.
That's
We
what I
make
was going
school
to
fun.
ask. Yeah, how
Yeah,
the kids' reaction. First off,
yeah,
it's fantastic that you guys are investing in PD for teachers. That is vital, I think, in the
yeah.
education sector. It needs to happen more often, especially when implementing new systems. But the next thing that's just as vital is how do the students respond? How are they reacting to this? And it's, to hear them, they want to come back. And, you know, are there a lot of project based activities in this system? Yeah.
Yeah, and especially for us, yeah, project-based activities. We like to ensure that we're using, you know, confidence building activities. We focus a lot on communication, capabilities, leadership. In fact, we have 6 culture principles on which we are founded. It's our core. And many times when I think outsiders meet a Noveneer because our students are called Noveneers. Our school is Nova Pioneer. They say, "You must be a Noveneer because you're so confident." And they're like, "Yes, as a servant leader, I think we shouldn't complain about our country. We should build our country." So we want them to be
Wow.
change makers.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, it's practical teaching where you go home and actually you learn by play, you learn by collaboration, and you learn by doing. So we challenge the students to take learning inside and outside the classroom, and we work with parents to do the same. It's not just about sitting and yeah, downloading what the teacher is saying. It's about living out practically what we're learning every day.
Is this a concept that originated with the founder of your schools, or is this something you guys collaborate with schools, say, in other countries?
Hmm. That's a really good question. So our founding team is amazing. I mean, amazing visionaries. And the vision was to, yes, have a Pan African school system that would educate 50,000 students in 10 years, and all of them would change our continent. That's the basis of our school. And so the founder's vision was singular. And what they did was heavily recruit, I think, people like me with a similar heart and mind towards it. So I think I've been very, very fortunate to connect with Nova Pioneer because, as head of the African Student Association at Georgia State University, head of the African Forum at Korean KDI in Korea. I was a Pan Africanist, somebody who said we need to find our own solutions. And so connecting with them for me was so inspiring. And bigger than that is saying, why don't we start when they're children? Because there are very many programs for us as adults that we can actually look for. But nobody thinks about the 3-year-old little boy except for Nova, where we're going, yes, little Micah, I know you're 3 years old, but joy in learning is something you need to know. There is joy in failure, and failure is fine. So we teach them about failure. We teach them all the lessons that you would get at a webinar for an adult that say, life is real, and these are the concepts that will allow you to be a servant leader. Work together, build together, fail forward. So we teach them all those in a kid friendly way, and my hope is that they take these as seeds for the rest of their lives.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great concept go through, especially working in education.
Mm.
We seem to have this divide, like, oh, they're children and oh, they're adults, so it has to be these two separate worlds. Well, we're all living in the same world. The same rules apply to a 3-year-old and a 30-year-old. So beautiful
Yeah,
vision. I'm fascinated.
thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about that as the years go on, and
Sure.
the future of that. That's fantastic.
Sure, and please travel and come and visit us. We love guest speakers. We love to show the school to visitors. So we're visited all the time, and the students are ready and they want to meet people from around the world because at my particular school, one of the pillars is globalism. So we're global citizens and we are Africa's global citizens. So we are going through the sustainable development goals with them, as well as bringing guest speakers, so that we can know that, yeah, in Korea, this is what Jeff is doing. In Kenya, this is what we're doing. Can we form a bond? So we have exchange programs with a school in Korea now, and then we have one with a group in California as well. So I would love for our students to get to know you and more of maybe other audience members who are interested in connecting with us.
Yeah, I'll get some information and I'll post it up if anybody listening would like to. Do you guys do virtual guests? I assume too. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to be a virtual guest, we'll get some information. That would be that would be wonderful. Wow.
Yes, you're welcome.
Good. Good. Yeah, I'm excited for the future of education. I love programs like yours, these innovative, creative ideas that hopefully revolutionize. They seem to have great ideas, grounded ideas that basically just want the best for the next generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And COVID threw kind of a wrench in there for all of us in the education
Mhm.
world. But with your program, do you think technology is going to play a much bigger part in education moving forward?
Mm, I mean, it's highly unlikely we'll ever go back to just the cemented walls of the classroom as we were before.
I agree.
And yeah, and I actually see the silver lining in COVID because I for the last few years I've been hearing people talk about 21st century skills. It's something that we have foundationally um, built in our students. But COVID, what it did was it exacerbated it. It just accelerated it,
Hmm.
and I'm thankful for that. I'm actually thankful that our kids are now digitally literate. They had to be digitally literate. They had to learn Zoom, the Google Classroom. And it's a beautiful thing when a child is teaching their parent how to make a slide deck in their home. It's a beautiful thing, you know? When
Yes.
my daughter tells me, Mom, you need to unmute your mic. And I go, Thank you, Abigail. It's a beautiful thing. So what it's done, it's forced us to actually move to put, I think, our money where our mouths have been, because it's
Yeah.
been just more theoretical. And now we've said, whoa, we can actually do this. So I'm grateful that it's pushed us to do things differently. We've been virtual since April,
Okay.
but tomorrow we're going to be hybrid. We bring in our 75 students from grade 4 and around 20 teammates. So 100 of us will be on the ground while the others remain virtual, 600, because we're a school of 760 students. So as we move to a hybrid model, I think it's going to allow us to see what we can keep, um, what's been working very well, because I don't think we'll ever be 100% paper anymore. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It won't be 100% paper anymore. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the whole hybrid situation works, because I've had conversations with others who actually enjoyed the hybrid, and teachers would like to do that going forward. I know not all teachers would like that. There are headaches and some hiccups and speed bumps along the way, but Yeah, moving forward, technology, as you said, there is a silver lining here. We just need to pick which path we're going to take and do the best that we can with it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's we I'm going to say for my team and the students, I have some anxieties as we open up,
Sure.
I have some anxiety around teacher schedules and balance because it's very stressful, I think, to be online or teaching virtually. Like, you've been teaching virtually as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
long term. So there's some stresses, there's some anxieties,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're up to the task. And if we're flexible, we build in flexibility into the system, we can say, okay, that didn't work. Let's change it. So if we're willing to adjust, we'll be fine. But we have to acknowledge that even adjustments are exhausting. People are just exhausted, very tired. We in Kenya did not get a vacation in August in primary school. We've taught from January, and we're teaching through December 23rd. So we
Oh
did
my
not get
goodness.
any break. So you can imagine those teachers right now. It's kind of like we have to just keep mental health as priority over regular evaluations and
Mm-hmm.
children's assessments. So I think we have to put people first. Just put people first when we're going back to school, when we're online, and give lots of grace. Just give a lot of grace for 2020.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And that follows one of the principles you mentioned for the kids, that failures happen and you have to grow from those. It's the same for
yeah.
teachers. Teachers
True,
don't go into
true.
a classroom looking to fail and then pointing fingers. Things happen. And as
Mhm.
you said, we just have to give grace the whole year. Let's just give it to the whole year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just give grace. Have just a few non-negotiables, and then the rest of them support. Just support through, the needs of the teacher, the needs of the student, and then just be there for each other, being very candid. What I really encourage is just be very candid, be very transparent, because I think everybody wants to do well, especially a teacher. Teachers are usually high achievers. They want to be the best, do the best. But I think we have to create a trust in a team where people can come to you and say, this is really hard for me. I really need help. If we can, I think, have that space for each other, then we're successful.
yeah. Well said. I agree. Well said.
Mhm. Thanks.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I honestly wish I could sit here for 3 hours and keep going on and learning more about Kenya. I want to learn so much more. Uh, Hopefully, you'll come back on. There's plenty more to talk about. The Maasai people. I want to learn more about them and talk about the dance culture and so much more
Yes.
that we didn't get to
Yes.
today.
Sure. Next
So
time. Next time. And also when you come to Kenya, you can record on site.
I hope to. Once the travel is lifted from Korea, we're
Yeah.
ready to go somewhere.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
that would be
Yeah.
great. Well, I'm going to leave this to you. Is there anything you'd like to promote? Are there any organizations or foundations you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think just what I said before, Nova Pioneer Tattoo Primary is our school here. We have amazing students from age 3 to 10. And if you go online, you can look on YouTube for some videos that we've made. There'll be more being uploaded in the next few months. If you're interested as an organization or individual in being a guest speaker, talking about what you do to our students, we would love to have you. If you would love to have, say, you're a teacher, do an exchange program with us, we would love to do that with you as well. So Jeff knows how to reach me, and I'm just so grateful for this time, Jeff, and for your friendship. This has been amazing. Thank you.
It has. Excuse me. It has. And thank you very much for coming on. Oh, excuse me.
Bless
I
you.
got choked up. You shouting me out.
You're so funny.
No, it had. This has been a pleasure, and It's been a while since we've caught up. So thank you for sharing all the information. I'll post some stuff on my website, on the Facebook page. And yeah, I'd love to get people connected, virtually talking to the students, sharing information. That'd be wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to Yerba Travels. And this is Yerba Travels signing off.